So a couple of days ago, I sat down with Kristi Burke from the YouTube channel Jezebel Vibes. I've got it tagged in the description of this video, and I highly recommend you go over and check out her content and subscribe to her channel. She's one of my favorite people to talk to. And I had her back on the show to talk about all of the momentum that we have here in Tennessee. And we also talked about how we can go about bringing people on our side together. And we talked about the grip that the church seems to have on our politics in our part of the world. So I'm going to take you now to that interview, and I really hope that you enjoy it.
Well, I don't think Tennessee is as red as they want us to believe that it is. It is a non-voting state, not necessarily a red state, and it is gerrymandered to hell. So I think a lot of people just feel apathetic. They feel like their vote doesn't matter. I used to be one of those people that believed that, it's just politics. All the rich people are going to win anyway, and my vote doesn't really count. And then I got to a point where I realized, oh no, I have to participate if I want a better future. And I think a lot of people are finding that switch in their own lives, just like I found, where they realize that they can't just sit back and be apathetic, that if they want something different, if they want a better future, and if they want to preserve the democracy and the rights that they hold right now, then they have to work for it. And that's, the more of us that work toward it, the less work each of us has to do. So I'm hoping that we can kind of generate more and more Americans to actually, and Tennesseans really, to actually get out and be civically engaged and actually care about their neighbors and their future and the entire democratic process. And I think that once we get people more fired up, a lot is going to flip in Tennessee. I really do see Tennessee being a state that can flip. I do.
I agree with you. And, one thing I've seen a lot, and I'm sure you have too, is I've seen people who never talked politics before, never brought it up. All of a sudden on the social media feed, they're talking about it. And I believe it's one of those things where, sometimes it's one of those things, whether you want to be a part of it or not, you're going to get pulled into it. There's really no way around it anymore. And I fight that battle a lot with people in my family who just sort of feels like, especially here in Tennessee, they just feel like like you said, they just feel like, well, my vote ain't going to matter. It's Tennessee. It's not going to make no difference. And if we all think that way, we'll always remain just like we are. And it takes more people that are willing to get out there and take the fight to them. And that's something that I really admire about you, because it's one thing for, us to sit here on a YouTube channel and do things, but you're out there fighting the good fight on the streets, at the town halls. The last time we spoke, you was kicked out of a town hall from Diana Harshbarger. And then you recently made some more noise when you had the whole incident with the chalk. And I would love to talk about that, because I was followed that and sharing your stuff. And that was really good to see.
The chalking has been such a cool experience. And I think at first, a lot of people didn't really get it. They didn't really know what my goal was. They thought that I was just trying to annoy Diana or change her mind. And I've known from the beginning of all of this, since I got kicked out of that town hall, that there is no changing my congresswoman. She is who she is. She is in the position that she's in because it benefits her and her family, not because it benefits anyone else or anyone in our district. And so I realized that what I had to do is I had to be civically engaged. I had to participate, but I also had to encourage everyone around me to participate. And so if I'm going to get on the internet and say, hey guys, this is a problem, we got to do something, I have to actually go out and do something and walk the walk. And I think that has encouraged more people to get civically engaged, because I'm not a politician. I'm not someone who has been involved or, being paid by Soros. I just am an everyday average person that saw the results of the election, saw what was happening in January when Trump took office, and I got scared, and I realized that I had to do something, and I had to gather people up to do something. And so my goal from the beginning has been to show my community and show my district that there are more progressives in our area than people realize. We're all just kind of hiding and scared. So I want to kind of bring people out, get people pumped up and excited, and get people raging at our congresswoman, because that's civic engagement, holding her accountable. I mean, Congress is literally supposed to be our voice and our representation in the government. And when they aren't doing their job, we have to hold them accountable. Otherwise, they just get to keep making their money and stealing our tax dollars and doing nothing with it. So I think that it has really gotten people fired up. I've noticed a big turn against Diana on social media and just generally in the district. I meet people all the time that, like in person when I'm out chalking, that, come up and read our messages, and they might be Republican, but they're like, I'm not voting for Diana. I don't like what she's doing. And so it's become a little bit of a community staple, just chalking right outside her office. We kind of fill up the parking lot, the block around, and there's a lot of people that like to just stop by and read our messages and talk to us about what we're doing. And it's been a really cool experience. It's kind of grown. I've got 2 other ladies that come out with me, and they're there when I'm not chalking. So there's always chalk in front of Diana's door. They can't get rid of us.
And I really believe that building communities is the key. You can say whatever you want to about MAGA, but they definitely built a community. And we can sit and criticize it for all of the right reasons and point out all the wrong that they're doing. But they did build a community, and they made a place where people felt safe to come and hang out with them. So that's the same thing we need to do on our side, and we need to keep our side motivated. And so one question that I had for Kristi was, how do we keep people on our side together? Because we do have a broader umbrella of people over here with a whole lot of different ideas. So I wanted to pick her brain and figure out how we could go about bringing people on our side of the aisle together in a better community. We have a broad umbrella of people over here, and how are we going to work to bring our side together to get behind the right person to get us over those finish lines? Because a lot of times our side ends up being divided, and I think that's what causes us to lose.
Yeah, well, we tend to eat our own, and I think we often have very high standards, which I don't think can be such a bad thing. But historically, there's been a lot of purity testing on the left, and I think we're all kind of realizing that it's not the way to go. When you're fighting fascism and Nazis that are trying to take over your government, you kind of just have to fix the problem at hand, and then you can work on weeding out all of the corporate Democrats, the Democrats that are just, taking money from the same people that the Republicans are. We have a lot of that. And so people kind of gave up on Democrats for that reason, but also with all the propaganda and that. But I think that the more we have people like AOC, Aftyn, Behn, that are actually kind of their voices are rising up and being amplified, people recognize that there are Democrats that will fight for you, that want better for you, and that aren't just there to line their pockets and to benefit themselves.
Yeah, and the one thing that we saw Republicans do this last go around in the election is, they really leaned into that bro podcast, genre, and they seem to, lean on that, and they have a culture. A lot of times on the Democrat side, it's as though we steer clear of a lot of that stuff, and I feel like that, if people realizes that we're relatable people too, a lot of times I think the Democrats. They'll put someone out there who's been around for so long. It's almost like, well, it's this person's turn next. They've been in government for 30 or 40 years, so now it's their turn. But I think people are looking for more authenticity. And I think that's why that, people like us can have a YouTube channel that grows, because people are looking for someone to be more authentic and not just be that middle of the road, corporate establishment person that's been in there forever. There's people, in our part of the world that's been in Congress as long as we've been alive, and it's crazy. It's crazy to think about. And I just hope that in time we could see some term limits and see things shift, because I feel like that also feeds into what we was talking about earlier with the whole, well, this is Tennessee and it's a red state and our vote ain't going to matter. It's just because they've seen the same players for so long have such a stranglehold. And so I feel like we got to find ways to get around that.
Yeah, I think anything new and fresh and different is going to get people excited. I mean, it's why you saw, what we saw in New York happen, because people want something different. And I think there's this lie that if you are too progressive or, too quote unquote socialist, you'll be too extreme, and then not even the Democrats will vote for you and you'll never win. But I think that's just a lie sold by the establishment. I think that anyone new and fresh and authentic is going to get more attention and more support than someone who doesn't feel so authentic. People are pretty good at kind of reading the authenticity factor on others. And we've kind of seen the same thing over and over again for so long that our brains just kind of like tune it all out. And so we don't really do anything because we're not paying attention. We're not listening. But then somebody new like Aftyn Behn comes in and it's different. It's exciting. It's authentic, and people get interested. So we need more of that. And I think a lot of people don't realize that the goal of our system the goal of Congress is not to get all of these established rich lawyers in who are career politicians and have been doing this for so long and want to climb the ladder. The goal was to get everyday average people from their communities who maybe don't know everything, who aren't super wealthy, who really just care about improving things, and get them in for a couple years, give some fresh ideas, represent their district, and then go back to their life. It was designed so that we, the people, can step up and represent our own communities, not some random out-of-towner funded by corporations who's just there to make sure that the billionaires keep getting their tax breaks and can keep doing whatever they want without regulations and exploiting the labor of people, and then hoarding wealth and using their profits to lobby our government for less regulations and lower pay and, more tax breaks. That is not the way it's supposed to be, but it's the system that has been created, and we've gotten so used to it. So we have to change it. And I think a lot of people feel as though to change it is to go up against like the biggest possible machine. It's just impossible. It's overwhelming. We can't do it. They have all the power and the money, but we actually have the power because there's so many more of us. And if we actually work at it and clean out the government and get real people in that are actually there to serve the public, not line their pockets, then that we will create that norm. And that will become how we run things. And we don't have to worry about that old system that doesn't serve anybody but the wealthiest people in America who don't need any more benefits than they already have.
Now, I always joke and say that I'm in the buckle of the Bible Belt where I'm sitting, and there's one question that I've asked myself so many times, and that is, will the church always have a grip on our politics the way they do? So I put this question to Kristi, and she came back with an answer that's had me thinking ever since. It's a great answer, and I do believe you're going to enjoy it. Take a look.
Oh, that's a tough one. You asked me if we'd ever have a woman president. I'm like, oh yeah, absolutely. And now you ask me that, and I'm like, oh, I don't know.
Well, I ask you because it's one I wrestle with myself. Like I wrestle with myself, so it's like, let me ask somebody else here because I don't know. That's one of those that I don't know if we'll ever be able to see them lose their grip that they have on us.
I don't know. I mean, I think we see a lot more progressive churches coming up, but then, we see we see this kind of resurgence of the trad wife and traditional values. And, I think that's intentional. I think we'll always have that grip. I mean, we've had it for a very, very long time, thousands of years. The church has had its grip on governments. And, I don't know that will change, but I don't really care so much about the power and the church and those who are pulling the strings and have all of the money. I care more about the people. And I do believe that, generally speaking, people from all religions, all backgrounds are generally good and have good intentions. And a lot of times they're just misguided. And so if we can work on talking to our neighbors, having better conversations, not fighting one another all the time just because someone is in a different religion or votes differently, and actually unite, I don't think it will matter so much what the church does because the people can change from the bottom up. And so, I'm seeing all the time just in my area, people from churches fighting and joining the resistance. We have our Indivisible group has we have so many subgroups in our local Indivisible chapter. It's really amazing. But there's one that is, I think, run by a pastor or at a local church. I don't remember the details. It was just formed a month or so ago. But they're Christians, that are fighting the resistance, and we see pastors showing up at our protests. And so I think that there is a shift. I think people. The more people read the red letters of Jesus, the more they'll support progressive politics, and they won't support the GOP. We got to get those people maybe not to leave the church, but to actually follow, what the teachings say.
Yeah, and it's so funny to me how that they did become the party of the culture wars, and they're all about that, but yet the message of Jesus is nothing like that. It's funny to me how they were able to marry. Somehow they were able to marry the culture wars with Jesus. It's always baffled me because when I'm sitting there listening to the candidates talk and I'm hearing one side talk about affordability and one side talking about feeding the hungry and, helping the sick, I hear that. And then I hear just a ridiculous culture war. I don't know. I just think back to things Jesus said, like, my kingdom is not of this world. I think of so many things he said that goes against that. And it's always been crazy to me how that that the two was ever able to intertwine, because I've always said that if Jesus were here today, and running for a place in office, they would be holding tele rallies all over the country talking about this radical dude.
Oh, they'd hang him again.
They would. they absolutely would. And it's crazy to me that they was able to pull that off. I'll always be fascinated by that. I have to admit, I will always be fascinated how they pull that one off.
I am too. I look at having been out for so long and deconstructed and really, have such an outsider perspective of it all. I see it also differently. And, it's funny, you asked me a little bit ago about like the church having such a grip, but I think more than anything, the government has the grip on the church and has kind of infiltrated it and changed it to suit their own agenda. And I'm seeing so many similarities between how I was raised and the teachings that I was taught in the church, not about Jesus, but about God and about authority and morality, purity, those kinds of things. And I see so much how those teachings in the church kind of seep out of the church doors and out into society. And even if you're not a churchgoer, you're not a Christian, you're still kind of adopting these ideas, these like archaic ideologies that come from the church, but people don't realize that they do. One big one that I've really been thinking on lately is this kind of might makes right thing where, you have people who attend these evangelical churches who worship this deity in the Bible, who throughout the Bible is very cruel, very short-tempered, very angry about the smallest things, cursing people for eating fruit and instructing his followers to go up and enslave people and kill babies and rip open the pregnant women's wombs. And when you talk to Christians about that, they say, oh, well, God is God. God is holy. He made everything. He is all powerful, so he can do whatever he wants, and it's called good. And so it creates this kind of might makes right mentality that the one who has the authority and the power is the one that gets to make all the rules, and you don't get to judge their morality, their ethics, their character, because they have the power and you don't. And I think a lot of people don't realize that mindset doesn't just apply to God within the walls of the church, that a lot of people have that same mindset toward the president, and they see Trump as the one in power, the guy in charge. He gets to make all the rules, and it doesn't matter what he says and what he does. He's the guy in charge. So you have to agree with it. Otherwise, you're the bad guy. And so it's things like that I can just see how these ideologies, they are created in the church and then they seep out into society. And so I don't know how to like stop that, but I definitely feel like if we can kind of create a kind of sever that, I think we'll see a big difference in how the church and politics are so intertwined.
So once again, I just want to thank Kristi for coming on the channel. It's always a pleasure to talk with her. You can subscribe to her channel. It's Jezebel Vibes. I've got the link in the description of this video. You can also search her on other social media platforms. That's Kristi Burke, Jezebel Vibes. If you search her, you'll find her. So get out there and support what she's doing, because we really do need to build and strengthen these communities and get everyone's message out there. And so I really do appreciate everyone for your support here on this channel. Also, make sure you subscribe to this one, because I've had people message and saying, Brando, I thought I was subscribed and somehow I got unsubscribed. And all I can say is there's all kinds of wacky things that happens on the internet these days. So just make sure you've hit that button on this channel as well. And if you want to check out the entire 56-minute interview that I did with Kristi, I have it available on my Patreon, and it's also available here on YouTube members only. So I really do appreciate everyone's support. Thanks once again to Kristi, and let's just keep building these strong communities.